Let's see. All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Members of the media, clinicians, veteran services organizations, and most importantly, our esteemed veterans and their families. Tonight, as we gather during National Veterans and Military Families Month, we do so with purpose and urgency. We are here to confront a deeply critical issue, the mental health and well-being of those who have served our nation. The statistics are a wake-up call. Veterans face the impact of double the suicide rate of the general population, double the prevalence of PTSD, and more than twice the risk of substance misuse. Yet nearly half of those struggling do not seek help. Many do not seek help out of fear that it could impact their careers or be seen as weakness. On top of that, 40% report difficulties transitioning back from military to civilian life. These numbers aren't just data points, they're real people, real stories, and real families affected. They remind us that we can simply not just thank our veterans for their service, but we must serve them in return. This gathering represents a step forward towards awareness, collaboration, and ultimately meaningful change. Together, we can shape the future where veterans have access to support, dignity, and healing they deserve. I'm Jana Wu, Director of Clinical Integration at Mountainside Treatment Center. In this role, I have the privilege of working alongside an extraordinary team, all driven by a shared mission to support veteran health and recovery in every way that we can. I'm especially proud to announce Mountainside's new initiatives that reflect our commitment. First, the launch of our weekly veteran support group, led by a veteran clinician and a veteran recovery coach. And second, our residential and intensive outpatient programs, tailored specifically for veterans navigating trauma, addiction, and the long road home. These efforts are being spearheaded by Mountainside's own Keith Appleton, a combat Army veteran and a licensed social worker. We are also incredibly grateful tonight for the partners who make this all possible. I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Commissioner Viviana DeCohen, or AKA Mama V for Victory. And Special Counsel Benjamin Prominence of the New York State Department of Veteran Services. Your support helps us to make these initiatives real. Thank you as well to our colleagues at Northwell Health, especially Dr. Manasa Hani, Director of Division of Addiction Psychiatry, and to our creative collaborators who are using film to drive awareness. Director Tommy Phillips and actor... and actors Dominic Chianese, recovery support advocate and actor, and Michael Imperioli. We are thrilled to have David Mannheim of Dopey Podcast here as our panel moderator this evening. Dave will bring his unique perspective and honesty to this space. Tommy's powerful film, Between Wars, was the spark behind this event. It offers a deeply human glimpse into the veteran experience and reinforces exactly why this work matters so much. You'll be hearing from many of these individuals this evening, and I hope their voices move you as much as they've moved me. And finally, we want to thank you, each and every one of you that showed up tonight. You're here tonight, and your presence, your engagement, and your commitment send a clear message to our veterans: you are not alone. I would now like to welcome and introduce Jessica Barone. Jessica is a certified addictions counselor at Mountainside who focuses on work with veterans and their families. Jessica is a proud spouse of a Marine veteran, Captain George Barone III. Jessica will be opening our evening with the Missing Man table. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jana, and thank you, everyone else. It's an honor to be part of this event. It's something very near and dear to my heart. Those who have served and those currently serving in the United States Armed Forces are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and may still be enduring agonies of pain, deprivation, and internment. This evening, you may have noticed as you walked into the theater a small table, which occupies a small place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing those who are prisoners of war and missing in action. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families tonight, so I ask that we join together and to pay our humble tribute to them and bear witness to their continued absence. The table, set for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their nation's call to bear arms. The single rose signifies the blood that many have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. The ribbon on the vase represents the ribbons worn on the lapels of the thousands who demand, with unyielding determination, a proper accounting of those who are not among us tonight. Sorry, I always try to get through this without crying. The Bible, a book of faith, represents strength and devotion to sustain those lost. A slice of lemon reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families. The glass inverted, they cannot toast with us this night. The chair is empty, they are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to the open arms of a grateful nation. Let us have a moment of silence to remember their sacrifices. May God forever watch over them and their families. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, Jessica. I would now like to bring up Benjamin Prominence. Benjamin is a special counsel to the New York State Department of Veterans Services, and he will share more about their mission and the impact they're having across New York State.
Good evening. I had remarks in mind, and then I observed from my seat as Jessica so eloquently performed the missing man ceremony. I'm calling an audible here and changing what I planned on saying. Last night in the city of Albany, our Department of Veterans Services held a Veterans Day celebration filled with festive activities, trolley tours, a concert band, a lavish reception, and ceremonial aspects to include the missing man table ceremony. And directly after the ceremony ended, a gentleman came to me, extended his hand, shook my hand, and he told me a story about his post-military journey, about how he had not felt the way he had felt when he was serving in the uniform of his country until last night at that gathering, which he came to because he did not know what else to do on Veterans Day, and he felt he should do something. And he went on to tell me about how challenging that post-service journey had been for him, about how he had turned to alcohol, how he had turned to substances, and how he had contemplated taking his own life. And how just that one evening, an evening that on the surface seemed kind of like some fluff, right? Trolley rides and proclamations and a band concert. That evening in camaraderie with his fellow veterans and sharing some stories at his table, sharing some stories aboard the trolley during the tour, how that restored something to him that was not there since his date of discharge. And that to me was a good old-fashioned reminder, good old-fashioned kick in the pants, so to speak, about we never know right? We never know when that moment is where we can make an extraordinary difference in somebody else's life. A U.S. Army veteran who is well known to New York City, named Jackie Robinson, said that a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. Well, we never know when that impact is going to hit home. But the opportunity to have that impact is daily. And especially for the work we are talking about tonight, the work that Mountainside is doing, the work that Mountainside is building, that impact is a daily opportunity to change a life and indeed to save a life. Every year we celebrate Veterans Month across New York State, and it seems like every year various events happen that lead to the unintentional creation of a theme for the month. And this year, thinking about what happened yesterday evening and several other encounters that I've had throughout the course of this month, the theme seems to be the journey. The theme seems to be the journey. I've had the honor of speaking with so many veterans throughout the course of this month who have talked about that transition after military service. Some who have found their niche, but it's been a challenge. Some who are still finding it. Some who are looking for where they fit in their post-military life. But it seems like at program after program, event after event, that concept of a journey has been front and center. And tonight, that concept is very much front and center. We're going to see here on this screen the story of a journey and the various aspects of that journey. The roadblocks, the detours, the bumpy roads, and the beautiful places that can come after those bumpy roads through perseverance and through the best possible connections, the best possible facilitations. And that's what tonight's all about, isn't it? It's about those connections. It's about making certain that that journey is not one person. It's about making certain that that journey is not just the one chair that we see in the missing man table, that it's in fact a whole group of fellow travelers going together on that journey and making certain that all who are on that journey are lifted up in every way possible, through every means possible, to reach the destination that they need to reach in their lives. And it's different for each person. Our commissioner speaks often about never assuming the veteran's voice, making certain that we work with those who have served in a way where we are listening to them, we are respecting their journey, and making certain in so doing that we are approaching them as individuals, not a Hollywood stereotype, not a media stereotype, but as people. That's the mission. And everyone in this room here tonight has gathered in that mission. And I am so excited to see where things go from here. Tonight is just the beginning, and there is so much else to come on that journey ahead. So thank you for what you have done leading up to tonight. Thank you for what you are about to do from tonight forward. To everyone here, thank you for your service. Let the mission continue, and let us reach that beautiful place of being able to say, mission accomplished. Thank you all so much.
And our film director, Tommy Phillips, is in the audience over here, and he has generously partnered with us to show Between Wars this evening. So we're going to start with the clips now, and then we will move on to our panel discussion.
You know, I literally fought my own war trying to get this thing done. And the first guy who had my back in this was Michael Imperioli, and it's amazing because he didn't have to, he really did not have to. It took me 10 years to get to this place, and he didn't have to stay that long. He had, all the fame in the world, but he stuck with me. And ultimately, that's the thing when it comes to guys who, and I'm not a veteran, but it's a thing that I see with guys who are combat vets and people who've been to war together, is that they get each other's back, through thick and thin. There's something that you go through. There's something that you see in those fellow soldiers that you can't let them go. And this film started out to be just a crazy New York film. And, when Michael signed on to do it, I was able to take the voice of Sarge and give it all of the knowledge and wisdom and the message that I had read and I've taken from, people like Dr. Haney. And I was able to give him a voice and, be able to try to, amongst the chaos and the craziness of this film, bring a message that's going to be a little bit different that you wouldn't see, as if you didn't see it in Mean Streets, you didn't see it too much in Taxi Driver. But this was a film that kind of had those elements, but plus it had this love and it had this calming effect when Imperioli got on the screen. And I'm sorry he can't be here tonight. He's shooting in Canada right now. But to be here right now is more importantly, and I've said this to a couple of you, is more importantly than actually getting distribution on the film. And it comes out in January. That's not a plug. I'm just letting you know it does. But it comes out in January. But being here amongst veterans and the fact that it's touched veterans in a certain way and it rings true is beyond my wildest dreams. It's beyond my wildest dreams to be up here right now, to be able to talk to you guys and let you know how I feel about this. This is more important to me, and I mean this. This is more important to me than getting this out to the masses. The fact that it's here, people are using it for what it's meant to be, which is to get that message out in the character of Sarge. So I love all of you, and I'm so happy that you're here, and I hope we have a great discussion. I'm excited. So.
Let's get a round of applause for this panel really quickly. Where's Tommy?
Oh, I'm not up here yet. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I got confused too. Here, have a seat. So I want to first, let's all give a big round of applause to Mountainside for having this amazing event, to Andre and Dave, and a huge round of applause. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, good. To Jana Wu, because she's just a dynamic, she's a dynamo. And then, my name is David Mannheim. I host a podcast called Dopey. I actually went to Mountainside and I met a friend there, and we were both recovering drug addicts, and we started a podcast based on storytelling, which is not, it's a different kind of war addiction. And we did this show of telling the worst things that we had ever done. And my friend's name was Chris O'Connor. And if addiction is a war, Chris was a casualty of addiction and he died. And I kept making this show, and it's such an honor to do anything with Mountainside, because Mountainside was the genesis of our podcast. Now, I just want to also, if anyone in here is a veteran, I would love you guys to stand up for a second. Any veterans, please stand up. And I want to really give a great round of applause to everybody in here. Because your service is incredibly appreciated, and we cannot thank you enough for what you've done for us. And it's very emotional. This month, the more I've been exposed to veterans' experiences and veteran stories, the more emotional I get about it. I would like to introduce everybody, but I think they do a better job of introducing themselves. Let's start with Mama V, please. I'm going to always go to Mama V first for everything, so everybody get used to it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Viviana DeCohen, a.k.a. Mama V, not trying to be anybody's mama. My 211 previously dismissed student veterans from a college who were told that they were not college material, and I had the college bring them back and created Operation Buddy Up, as we learned from boot camp and the military. Long story short, Operation Buddy Up and then Operation Push. Today, the 0.9 to 1.9, they all have masters and 5 PhDs, and the 70-year-old named me Mama V for victory.
Awesome. Thank you, Mama V. I have to call you Mama V the whole time. I hope that's okay. Dr. Haney, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Manasseh Haney. I'm an addiction psychiatrist by training, and I work for Northwell.
I run their addiction division. Also, they fellowship for training psychiatrists to be specialized in addiction. There's a fellowship program. That's what I do for them as well. So my whole career is in addiction and in psychiatry as well. Awesome. Thanks. Let's hear it for Dr. Haney, please. And Dominic Chianese, would you please introduce yourself?
I got to answer questions.
Well, I mean, you're a very scary character in this movie.
Literally, I was just walking by, and he pulls me, and he goes, Dom, no, somebody didn't show up for the panel. We need you. Just sit there and look like you know stuff. He said he was going to give me snacks.
I said you look fantastic.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm making light because this is what we do. We use humor to compensate for our discomfort and insecurities, and this is very emotional for me as well, incredibly. And I feel humbly honored to be asked to do this just because Michael couldn't make it. You know what I mean? Thanks, Tommy. My name is Dominic Chianese Jr. I am an actor, but more importantly, I'm in recovery and addiction field for many years. I have been for decades now been on the front lines of this, and in many capacities, whether it's coaching or intervention work or companionship work or working for many different facilities and so forth. But more importantly, I have lived experience with this disease. So I believe that uniquely qualifies me to be up here today.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Dominic.
And last, please, let's hear it for Dominic. Nice.
Just want to say that to Dominic that humor as a defense mechanism is a mature defense mechanism and not immature. So you're qualified as a mature by a psychiatrist.
There you go. He's going to bill me for that later.
It seemed like a pretty immature defense mechanism to me.
Yeah,
just so we're clear. And last but not least, Keith is superstar Keith Appleton. Please introduce yourself. Let's hear it for Keith.
Thank you. So my name's Keith Appleton. I am a 101st Airborne combat veteran. I was deployed from 07 to 09. I left the military. I'm very proud to be on this panel right now. This film absolutely spoke to me and Sarge's character 100%, so I am more than grateful to be here tonight. I am also a clinician at Mountainside and leading the charge on the veteran programming. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Keith. And I also want to give another round of applause to Jessica Barone because that was an incredibly emotional reading. And we all had the pleasure of seeing Tommy's movie. It's very powerful, it's disturbing, but it's also hopeful. And we picked some clips that we wanted to talk about that really lend itself to understanding the veteran's experience and where the possibility of hope is. The first clip we chose, we called... It's something they say in 12-Step on Long Island. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And please play the clip. And we have to get out of the way. Yeah, you guys come here. You guys go there. And this is the first clip. Thank you, guys.
You know how many thoughts you think in a day, Fran?
I don't know, 15, 20.
Try 60 or 70,000. 60 or 70,000 thoughts every day, and 90% of them are the same exact thoughts day in, day out. It's like we got to break the habit of being ourselves, you know?
Hey, I don't get it. I don't understand.
You are what you think. This is not woo-woo talk. This is neuroscience.
I mean, you got to elaborate. I'm a little lost in the sauce here.
No, it's like most people want to change, right? But they think they can do it by remaining the same person. You understand? It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
It's like you wake up every morning, the same time on the same side of the bed. You turn off the alarm with the same finger. Stumble into the bathroom, take a shower, go to the same deli. Notice the same assholes who piss you off. Order the same bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll with a cup of coffee. Then you drive along the same roads, listening to the same bullshit on the radio every day. Do the same mindless bullshit at work. Hurry up home along the same roads. Watch the same TV programs every night. Hurry off to bed, right? Let me ask you something. Did your brain, that brain that has 70,000 thoughts every day, did your brain change that day, that month, that year? Most people go their entire lives this way. They want desperately to change, and then they die. They die. The world around you is going to change, that's a fact, but you won't. You will die, as they say, with your music left inside you. Unless, wake up and change.
Now, I have to be honest, when I saw that clip, I thought about it. I've thought about that clip every day since the first day I thought it, since I thought it, and how, if I do different things, could I change? And I was not a veteran who saw combat, but I mean, as a recovering addict, as somebody who wants to change my life, I wanted to see how different action could make for change, and actually was very helpful. Now, Mama V, you are a veteran. What kind of change have you seen in the veterans community or personally seen? And what did that clip say to you?
So I am a veteran. I am not a combat veteran, but I have lived the combat transition, having been on the end of where I lost everything after husband took off with 2 Irish twins 10 months apart, and right outside of the camp that I served, which could no longer help me. In the 80s, where you were not even told that you were a veteran, but your off-board was, if you're not re-enlisting, there's the door, here's your VA home loan, you put your money in the Veep. So I am that veteran, that woman veteran, who had to experience the loss of a husband leaving, being left with 2 children, being given 72 hours to pay the rent that was only $250, knowing that I needed a change, didn't know how to get it, being told in North Carolina that there were no social services for me, going to a job that I thought was secure, having the same MOS, that I had here, and being given a pink slip. And so I needed a change. I needed someone to find me. And this is why Benjamin and I are here tonight, because we know that the experiences, that song, whether times are good or bad and happy or sad, has allowed us to be able to do what it is that we're doing now, because now we are truly experiencing and realizing that we can no longer be just a door opener, but that we have to be the door. And so, Department of Veteran Services, we're the door, because now, I had to be selfish. I had to say, I have to ensure that no one who served will ever go through what I've gone through. So now we had to change the claim form, that yes, we want your eligibility and we want your claim, but also have to make sure that mentally those things that weigh on your mind are no longer there. So we ask you, do you have a significant other or someone in your home right now, including yourself, that needs to be employed? Right? Because now we're all partners and we're active partners, right? To ensure that happens. Do you have a family? Are they school age? Because now we're providing book bags that are filled with the supplies so that you don't have to worry about that and able to get the school clothing. Are you expecting a baby? Because now we have Operation Baby, where we have the free diapers, all the things that I needed, and the food and the things that you would need for a baby that are very expensive, like the car seats, to come home. So now we are living off of those experiences with a mobile van. And I tell everybody, when you're out there, you're looking for me. You're out there to find me for Operation Find and Serve, but we're not saying veteran anymore. We're now, our vans and everything we have says for those who've served, so that people see the mobile unit and they can say, hey, you know what? I served, but I'm not quite sure if I'm a veteran. So it's the lived experiences, as Benjamin says. I've told people that we are no longer a number. This is not quantitative. This is about qualitative. This is about not assuming the voice of the veteran, but asking people what it is that they need and ensuring they have it, and then educating the community. with that military cultural competency on who we are and what our worth and real value is. So when I see that, and I know that without change, there is no change. And so we have become the change makers. And we are here again, not to open the doors, but to be the door.
Amazing. Thank you. And I have a question for Dr. Haney, because I'm sure you've worked with many veterans. What happens if you are the door and the veteran is not interested in going through the door?
Oh, I think one of the most important aspects in treatment in general is to go with the pace that the individual wants to go with. We are not supposed to take you with my own pace, my own way. I can show you the way, and then you take the step whenever you are ready, whenever you want to. And in terms of change, I just want to add one thing, which is the most evidence-based psychotherapy that we have is cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is change how you think that will change how you behave. And this is a great dialogue. I was talking to Tommy about that earlier, that how he translated what I can say to my patients in a very eloquent and very nice way. This is really what CBT is about, is to change the way that you think, then the way that you behave will be absolutely going to follow.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Haney. And Keith, you are a combat veteran as well as a clinician. And when we were talking about neuroplasticity as we made our way up here, and I think Rich was like, you need to define neuroplasticity. You can't just bandy these terms about. So Keith, can you first define neuroplasticity for us, please?
Yes. So neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change and adapt, creating new neural pathways. I can give you a couple examples too. That's kind of the book definition.
I want to know for you, because you were Fran.
Yes.
So you show up back here after serving. Where is your head out, and how do you start experiencing change?
Yes, good question. So just to kind of put this in perspective from like a veteran's perspective, thinking about like the process of going to war and what that actually looks like. When I got over to Iraq in 2007, I was on convoy security. I was the lead gun truck in a gun truck platoon, protecting convoys, protecting people, all different types, sizes. And I was on MSR Tampa almost daily. If any of you are familiar with MSR Tampa, it's one of the most deadliest roadways in Iraq. It's the main service road that's used through there, and it's riddled with potholes from previous IEDs and explosions. So getting over there into Iraq, doing this job, being that lead vehicle in the convoy, I quickly realized that everything I was trained on to look for, of what to avoid, was all around me. So it can be consuming. It can consume you with fear. So for me, just to be able to function in that position and not be overwhelmed with fear, I had to compromise, which is essentially what we're talking about with neuroplasticity here. The idea of creating a new neural pathway, a new adaptation for that environment. And my adaptation was to embrace the fear, was to suppress the fear, and accept that I am most likely not going to make it home, that I am most likely going to die here. And I did that. I wrote letters to my family. I said who would get what. I had made up my mind that this could potentially be what happens, because these dangers were all around me, and it was something that I could not control. So it worked. It worked in that environment. I was able to function. I was quick on my feet. I could respond in a split second in the most dangerous situations. Even when I was hit directly by an IED, my truck, my guys spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I refused medical treatment. I ignored everything that my body was telling me, and I went right back out onto the road the very next day. And I did that going in mission after mission after mission until the end of the deployment. And it wasn't until the end of the deployment when they said, hey, Keith, the missions are over now. You're going to be going home in a week or two. that I was crushed. I thought that I wasn't going to make it home. And I didn't know what going home would look like for me because of who I had to become to live and survive in that environment. So I shut down. I put myself in a dark room, and my guys started coming to me. And my guys are the ones who pulled me out of that. They said, "You've been taking care of us. Let us take care of you." And they brought me an IV because I was dehydrated. I lost a ton of weight. They brought me food, and they got me back to life and back to a point where I could get back on the plane and go. Having to live in that environment, those were adaptations that I made in this concept that we're talking about that were perfect for that environment, perfect for having to survive and keep everybody else alive in the convoy and get back home to my family. However, it's not something that you could turn off and on that easily. So getting back home, your brain doesn't know the difference between Iraq and New York. So that's where the problems start to come in.
Please expand on that, though, because that's what I'm really interested in. When you come home and you've been through this whole thing, you see this exchange between Franny and Sarge, and Sarge trying to get Franny to do different things. What were some of the different things that you had to do when you came home?
Yeah, so I was in for about 10 years. I had no plans getting out. I had a leg injury that kind of cut my career short. So I explored, all I know is war. I'm going to go private contracting, or I'm going to go this school route because being a counselor, being a leader in the military, I loved those qualities. I got the job to go to a place called Triple Canopy. They're going to pay me much more than I'd ever gotten paid in the military. I was really excited about that, and that's where my strength was. But then I'd be leaving my family behind. And at the same time, the counseling and being a leader, that's everything that I loved about being in the military, taking care of my soldiers. So I explored that route and went down that route. And I did a lot of work over the years. And just to give you an example that kind of highlights your question is, I got to a point where I thought I was doing good. I had been very successful in everything that I did. I always worked with the veteran community. I always kind of found purpose. But what really knocked me off my feet was I bought a home that was directly across the street from a dynamite factory, believe it or not. And this dynamite factory had been in business for so long, it was actually the father of dynamite, that there was no sound ordinance. So we didn't know moving into this house that there was a dynamite factory. So these explosions are happening right outside my home. And those explosions happening, it just caused this visceral reaction inside of my body that I recognize that this is something that I don't have control over right now, and I need to face it, and I need to face it now. So that's what shifted my focus to really start hard charging and figuring out what I can do to get to a place where I can live through these explosions and where I can manage what I had been suppressing and pushing down for a while.
Wow. And you didn't join any kind of weird underground fight club, though. That didn't happen to you, no. And you did?
No.
Okay. Dominic, as a person in long-term recovery.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Wow. Thank you.
I had to pause because there's no way I'm going to speak after that.
Well, you're going to have to.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm sure you didn't serve in Iraq or have a military experience, but being someone in recovery who's been through a lot, when you see a scene like that between Sarge and Franny, like, what does it conjure for you? What situations like that have you been in that you could relate to on both sides of that desk?
No, of course, yeah. As somebody who, first of all, what happens when we go through these experiences, we become so able to be of service to others in that way through our lived experience. And, people believe you, the only thing I could think of, that it was, there was lots of violence in my past experience. I was filming a documentary during 9/11, so I was right there filming the whole thing. So there was some experience of and it gets triggered. I would just like to mention that if nothing changes, nothing changes. I always resented that.
Could you do that again, please? Thank
I was
you.
like, I would write that off, but it's such a simply profound statement, and everybody hit on that. And talking about neuroplasticity, and the doctor talked about changing your thinking, you change your actions, but it's also the other way from my experience. Move a muscle, change a thought. And they work together, and meeting people where they're at is so important, and inviting them into the solution. And also just that connection, and Ben had mentioned that earlier. Connecting neural passageways is the same thing as the connection that we made through our shared lived experiences. We do that in recovery a lot. But really what I love is this idea of a bridge, whether you're bridging neural pathways or community, right? I also wanted to just talk about how important it is to have those triggers. That gives us a clue of when to change. They're very uncomfortable, but they give us a clue. So if anybody's experiencing any triggers, it's just like, that's what I need to work on. That's where the hurt still is. So I hit certain neighborhoods. I get triggered. I go, oh, right. So what I try to do is, the thing I try to change is create a new memory there. Much like I'm creating here with you guys tonight, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dominic. Let's hear it for Dominic. One of my favorite 12-step cliches, and Dominic hit on it, is it's harder to think yourself into right action than act yourself into right thinking. And by taking an action, like turning a bad neighborhood into a good one, or working with fellow veterans to repurpose your experience for good, it's like that's how we change. But let's get to the next clip, or we're going to run out of time. The next clip is called PTSD Dream. Now, this is a much more visceral, quick clip than if nothing changes, if nothing changes. Mama V, have you ever had a scary nightmare? What is your experience with PTSD dreams, straight up?
When I first saw that clip, immediately, and Benjamin knows this story, I thought of a veteran that I was told was not allowed in City Hall, that she was a nightmare, and that she was a pain in the ankles up and down, and not to allow her in the building. And she waited for me to park my car. And she said, "Are you the new director here, Mount Vernon?" I says, "Yes, I am. I'm a veteran." And I said, thank you, for your service, for embracing the suck, and for walking the floors and the nightmares, good, bad, and indifferent, while others could sleep. I said, "Thank you for that." And she says, "No one ever said that to me before." And I says, "Well, we're going to be volunteering tomorrow morning, giving out some goods, the veterans and I, those who served." And she said, "I don't volunteer for nobody." And I said, that's fine. Listen, if you're interested, we'll be out there tomorrow, 0700. If not, that's fine. I got there 6 a.m., and there she was. United States Air Force. I named her Queen Jean. And I created a veteran's closet, and she allowed me to know that she used to be in retail. So I says, "Well, I'm not in retail. You take care of the closet." Long story short, she kept coming back every day, and she started saying, "Mama V, I slept for a couple more hours tonight." And she said, "No one ever asked me what I needed before, and no one ever allowed me to do anything before." She's been with me for several years now, and when I went to speak at Bomba Sox, I put the microphone in her hand, and she shared the nightmares not that she had, but that she lived and experienced, and how now her narrative has changed for her because she got her dignity back. And that's what she says. I have a new narrative because I have my dignity back, that I have a new story because someone listened to me, and then now she has the support and she has a community. And, you know, I also think of programs like the Joseph P. Dwyer program, where now, you know, folk can share those dreams and that they have a peer and that they have people who understands that and that they're in the room, you know, just like being in the room, that we have our own room because we have our own lingo and we have our, you know, own language, and just the importance of being able to change that narrative and turning what she said yesterday as she marched in the parade, you know, that once upon a time, you know, she cries every time. I spoke to her on the way here. Once upon a time, she said, I had dreams that weren't so well. She says, now I have a dream and I'm living a new dream with new purpose because I have my dignity back.
That's beautiful. I was watching, I was at a conference last week, and on my way home, I saw, I think it was around Veterans Day, actually, I saw a clip of Obama greeting a flight of veterans flying to Washington, D.C., and the veterans that got up off the plane were so moved to meet President Obama, but also to be welcomed home. And watching it, I knew that these veterans were not all diehard Democrats. You know, you could kind of see that they were not, but you could also see how their faces lit up to be seen and to be together. And what you spoke of, it's like nobody does great alone. We need each other. And Keith, I want to know just from you, how many horrible PTSD dreams have you had? And like, what do you get when you see a clip like that?
So a couple things. So I love like neuroscience and the brain and all that, and how trauma works. Trauma is carried in the body. So when there's a trigger that happens, like what you see here, that is stored in the body. When you go to sleep during REM, rapid eye movement, that's when all of your memories from the day are being moved from short-term to long-term memory storage. So your mind is trying to make sense of what has happened to you throughout the day and how to put this into your long-term storage. However, if you have trauma in your past that you haven't faced or you've avoided, like I was doing, then that can very easily trigger that into a PTS dream, which can occur. I had quite a few over the years, especially when you're around a stimulus such as that. However, what I'm here to say is that you can change, you can extinguish that stimulus of whatever it is for you. But just like you were saying, you have to recognize what that trigger is, how it impacts your body, and implement specific change with intentional purpose. And I got to a point where I had implemented several changes throughout my life. One of the biggest changes that I implemented was, like you were talking about, connection, needing somebody. I called my local VFW and I told them, I said, guys, I need help. And they immediately went down to this company and told them that this veteran needs text messages for when these explosions are going to be going off. And that's what started a huge, significant change in my life. They brought me into their community. And then I started going back to facing with intentional purpose how to sit through the detonations, how to reduce the intensity of how they were occurring. And I can study through them. It is something that when you reprocess it, it's freedom.
Well, it almost, yeah, please, let's hear it for Keith. It almost becomes like an opportunity to deal with the trauma. Like you take action, you talk to the VFW, you write about it, you connect with people, and then you're ready to face the trauma head on, and then you get to change from it. It's really, really amazing. And Dr. Haney, could you please give us more of the inside of the brain? What's happening? Neural pathways, synapses, what is going on in there?
Absolutely. Actually, Keith touched upon that, the way that our brain works. Usually, it takes notes and stores memories that are connected to emotions. So if there is a strong emotional response that is connected to some kind of event that happened to you, the brain takes note and stores it dearly to it. And if you get a couple of examples, like a very terrifying experience, such as being in war or being exposed to assault or others, or such a great, wonderful experience, such as being high on cocaine, the brain gets this intense response and stores it dearly to it to take note for future reference. For instance, if you have traumatic event, the brain, for survival, keeps it in its books to avoid that happening in the future, to kind of save you from future recurrence of this event. So in the case of the bombing that you got across the street from you, and by the way, you did such a wonderful job receiving this. That was an exposure therapy that you had for yourself. And the smart thing to go and ask them to time that. That's just, fee-free exposure therapy that you received, that, the universe put ahead in front of you. So the brain stores these and reminds you every time that there's a bomb, because there's a bombing or gunfire that is connected in the brain where you extremely afraid. Then every time you will see such high level voice or such an experience that's similar to that, the brain doesn't understand that you're in a safe place now when you return to New York, and it will just give you the same exact response. And they will come at night when you're asleep, all these dreams of all the horrors that you got exposed to. On the other hand, though, with the high of the drugs, the brain also, those who got in recovery, they can tell you they're still having dreams that they're using, because the brain still remembers this hike of dopamine and pleasure that they had when they were using cocaine or heroin. So that's how the brain is wired, just to answer your question about the neuroscience behind it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Dominic, you ever have drug dreams, using dreams, drinking dreams? Yes. Tell us, please. I want to hear. When was the last one?
Actually, it's strange you should mention that. It wasn't too long ago. They stretch out more now. Oh, yeah, right. Sorry. I'm used to just having a big mouth, you know what I mean? First of all, I really just love the fact that our brains can't tell the difference when we're coming from that, monkey brain, and it's really fight or flight, and it's like we're supposed to stay alive. Like, we can't tell the difference between Iraq and New York. We can't tell the difference that this substance is killing us. I actually believed I needed it to live. That's how much my brain tricked me. So I just wanted to say, and I also love that help for us, we get help when we ask for it. And it's such a hard thing for us to do. And to give practical, applicable things to help people. V, you hit on that a few times. We're actually giving you tools, I didn't even know I needed this. My drug dreams are really frustrating. I'm trying to get it, and then I get it, and I can't use it. It's like melted or something. I don't want to go into the details, but I never get high on my dreams. It's so frustrating. And then I wake up going, I thought I was going to get a freebie. You know what I mean? This is the interesting part. My first thought, sometimes I have drug dreams, and this is how interesting addiction works in my subconscious. I'm using, right? I'm drinking, I'm hanging, and it's like the old days, because that's what my subconscious remembers. And then I realize, oh my God, I'm in recovery. I'm not supposed to be doing this, right? You know what my first thought in the dream is? I can't tell anybody. I got to lie about it. Yeah. Not like, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, oh, I got to cover this. So that's how deeply this goes in my brain, which nobody wants to spend any time in. It goes so deeply that it's so innately there. My response is to lie and to hide and to cheat and to steal. So it has to be years and years of walking out of those woods in order for me to be like, oh, maybe that's not my first response. Maybe this time I'll tell the truth. Maybe this time I'll ask for help.
Awesome. Dr. Henney, I have a follow-up question. Why can't Dominic get high in his dreams? Why can't I get high in my dreams? Why is it like that?
Actually, probably he had some kind of dopamine release, not as high as the actual use, but the brain would soothe itself with some dopamine, so that he gets a little bit of a high, actually.
No, there's this thing that happens with drug addicts. They get drugs in their dream, and then something comes up and they can't use it. It's very frustrating. Do you have any insight to why a drug addict in recovery has drugs in the dream but can't use them?
Because the actual use, well, first of all, the cues to use, as everybody knows, gives a little bit of a hike of dopamine to begin with. Then you get the actual use that gets the actual hike. Now, in the dream, you get the first part. But because you don't get the hike, the actual hike, because you don't use, so the brain interpreted as, you couldn't get to use because the drug dealer just got arrested or something.
That's a perfectly good explanation.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. All right, we're going to go to our next clip, The Power of the Group / We're Only as Sick as Our Secrets. But before we run this clip, I just need to warn, this is a very graphic clip. I mean, you don't see anything, but it conjures really graphic, potentially triggering material. So if anybody feels like that might put you at risk, please step out. But this is this clip.
We get it, right? Nobody understands when we try to explain it. They didn't experience it, we did, so be it. But the truth is, owning it, facing the dragon, slaying the dragon, because if the dragon wins, and we gotta pay the price, right?
After my recovery, I began blacking out from the hatred and the rage. My unit and I, we were sweeping a building, and I ran smack dab into a Taliban. It was like two alley cats going at it, screaming and screeching and clawing. Until I finally put my knife in his neck. I just felt this warm ooze out. He just looked up at me and kind of like caressed the side of my face with his hand, and I don't know if he was like respecting me or thanking me or forgiving me, but that's what I wanted. I wanted him to forgive me. But when he touched my face, I realized he wasn't some animal, he was a guy like me. He just probably had a fucking family and shit.
Thank you, friend.
Yeah.
Now, before we came to do this panel, we had a Zoom call last week, and we started going over the clips. And when we played this clip, Dr. Haney said, wait a sec, I don't know if this clip is appropriate for this room. And we had this discussion about why or why not we should have this clip in this presentation. And doctor, could you please reiterate your concerns, and have you rethought it at all?
Yeah, first of all, it's a really powerful talk, powerful dialogue, powerful delivery and direction, and really great, Tommy. I thought that the emotion that it elicits in the audience would be stronger, might trigger some kind of reaction in somebody who had similar experience. And we usually, again, we talked about exposure therapy and trying to reprocess the trauma in a controlled setting, in a therapeutic relationship between the therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist and the patient. And in a controlled way to process these thoughts and respond to it and stop when we are out of control. So I was afraid that was one of my fears, that it might elicit some kind of response in the audience, that we are not in a setting to stop in a certain place or provide the best response to it.
And did you have and what did you think when you watched it now in the room?
Well, I can't tell how people perceived it, but it created the same reaction in me. It's powerful and it's strong. It produces a lot of emotions in me, and I'm sure in the audience as well. I think it's helpful to have these emotions talked about, perhaps in a one-to-one setting or group of individuals who suffer from this. But again, it's always great to talk about even sad emotions.
Definitely. And the three of them were like, no, Dr. Haney, we need to have this clip in the film. And it was really exciting for me to hear them stand up for it. Mama V, I went right to you before. What was your reaction when we were talking amongst ourselves, and how does it play out here for you?
I was saying that this is the military cultural competency / humility that needs to be in the face of the folk who are on the receiving end of those who have served and have allowed you to sleep at night as they've walked the floor with these memories that have given us and you the freedoms. Also, this is the opportunity for the policymakers to see what this is, because here's what I tell people, and Dr. Haney knows, we're researchers up here. We have been the quantitative, we have been the number for so long. We can give you the stats of how many have gone to the drugs and alcohol just because of the PTS, but also the MST and the discrimination and the lack of benefits because of those discriminations, and all those things. But, it's truly time for the qualitative. It is time for the phenomenological, for the lived experiences, so that we can stop being behind these things and having preventions, so that we can get in front of them, so that the policymakers know that where they're sending us, right? What it is that we're going to experience, and start giving the tools prior to sending us there, while we are there, and then ensuring that when we come back, that we are ready to go back into a place where there is support. This is Michael. Michael came into our veterans closet, and they said, we get the stinkies here. They said, we have the one that gets the drunken blindness and defecates on himself. And I said, great, that's my person. That's my population. That's my favorite. And sure enough, Michael came in and had defecated all over himself and came to introduce himself and had snot coming out of his nose and no teeth and looking disheveled and yeah, he stunk, and I hugged him and I said, how are you? I said, I'm Mama V for Victory. And I says, we have a veterans closet for you next door. Come and see what we have for you. And we got a washcloth. No, we didn't have a washcloth. We got a undershirt, and we got the bucket and had him clean up himself and put his clothes in the garbage bag. And he came and he said, ta-da, how do I look? And I says, you look fabulous. What did you do? He said, my name is Michael. My name is Michael. And I says, Michael, do you think you can come back here early tomorrow morning? Mama V needs some help opening up some boxes, because I know what it is to have worth and have value despite what you look and smell like. I know what giving you your dignity back can do. Michael came back every morning. He'd come early before anybody else was there. And then he said, I'm back, but I had an accident. I'm back. And we went through this for about 7 months. And Michael says, Mama V, I'm going to put myself in rehab. I did not see Michael again until it was time for me to leave, when I was called for the governor to work. A gentleman came in, 3-piece suit, teeth, hair slicked back, smelling good, looking good, and had a woman with him. And he said, Mama V, it's me, Michael. And he said, this is my wife. And the wife hugged me and had tears. And she said, Michael has been out here for 35 years. Crazy. And he says, Mama V, he says, you know why I love you? He says, because you didn't call me shitty. You didn't call me pissy. You called me Michael, and you loved on me. And 4 years later, Michael and his wife and family are living in Florida. And he's got his benefits, yes, but he'll tell you in a heartbeat, I got my dignity. Because he had the support, and he had the love, and he had the value of who he is as a person, not a quantitative number, but as a person whose story he was allowed to share, the nightmare of what he had done, and got his self-worth, right? And got those synapses reconnected and got his value. And today he has everything that he's earned in the way of being a human being.
That's incredible. Because he was a disaster, but you loved him anyway. And Keith, we were talking on the side, and you were like, the thing I want to talk about is the moral victory. I said, what moral victory? What are you talking about? So what are you talking about, Keith? He said, watch the clip.
Moral injury.
Moral injury, even better. Moral injury.
No, so...
Help me.
Of course, yeah. So a moral injury is something that happens, either that you do unintentionally, like I should have done this or I could have done that. The closer we are to a trauma, the more responsibility we feel for that trauma, and we take on that. So the trauma is one thing which is separate from the moral injury, and I think it's just important to highlight it for any veterans, any providers, and especially any family members in here of veterans, of the difference between the two. Because we can work on the trauma, but we also have to work on the moral injury piece. So in that, you hear the sensory stuff that was triggering, and that's where all the fear comes around that we talked about, that we shared in, that could cause a trauma response. However, what you also hear is how sad and ashamed he feels, but he was able to do it in a group setting and put it out there. And that's the first step to change, is being able to say these things out loud where others can hear you. That helps you redefine how you think about it, just like you were saying earlier. So I think it's important, because I've had family members come to me and tell me, this is what my husband veteran is struggling with. And I go through the EMDR process with them. We go through the history taking, and we're right specifically to what that wife or spouse or said. And it's absolutely incredible, because that's the work that needs to get done to stop the triggers and to decrease the intensity of the traumatic response that we experience.
A little bit more on the moral injury, though, please.
Of course. So can I give you an example?
Yes, please.
Okay. So while I was deployed, again, I was the lead gun truck in the convoy. This was something that I held on to for many years and struggled with. Every time I'd come up to this one checkpoint, I would see these guys running underneath the bridge, 2 guys. And I said, something's wrong here. So I told my intel guy, before mission, you meet with intel, I tell him every single time, they're still running underneath the bridge. Something is wrong here. And then I started requesting, can I go act? Can I go check this out? It was like, nope, your job is just to get the convoy over the bridge. You can't touch it. So I let it go. About 4 weeks after that, all of a sudden we hear that a dump truck pulled up to that same checkpoint and had homemade explosives in the back, which blew up on an EOD Buffalo truck, which is a massive troop carrier, and all those soldiers died. And it left this massive crater in the roadway. So every time I passed through this checkpoint, I had to pass by this massive crater. That's one piece that can be triggered as far as the trauma. However, the moral piece of that, which is something that I really connected with when I was able to say this in front of my peers, in front of a group of veterans, to reframe this, to restructure it, and understand it in a different way, that I did absolutely everything I could. And this was something that I was just holding onto. But to be able to say what he said in this clip here is very difficult to do, but it's so important that we do it. And it's so important as providers, as veterans, and as family members that we recognize these things and we pass them along so they can be managed.
Thank you, Keith. That's amazing. Please, let's hear it. I appreciate you telling the personal story, because it gets really, really crazy. And Dominic, The phrase that popped into my head when I saw this scene was, we're only as sick as our secrets. And when we're alone with something horrible, we're horrible. But when we share it, our horror is reflected, and we see we're not alone. And what is your experience in group situations where healing happens?
Thank you. It was hit on, and pain shared is cut in half, but joy shared is doubled. Just wanted to put that spin on it. It is really important to recognize that it's not necessarily our fault. To recognize with the people around us, and I heard a lot of this, and I saw it in the clip. We're destigmatizing things. This person defined himself as a shitty person. This person defined themselves as a failure who committed this. Often we define ourselves until we say, I feel like a terrible person. And then somebody says, no, you're not. So we're not responsible for our disease, but we're responsible for our recovery. Okay. And it's really important that we get into a group of people who are also partaking in this process because, right? It's really hard to find words. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate something that I have to do to change, if you don't mind. Please. I was incredibly moved by that. Now, this is going to be really hard for me to do, but I'm going to tell him that, thanks for teaching me about that, about moral injuries, but also like how emotional that made me, that like I actually need a hug. So I'm going to ask this man, if you don't mind, to give me a hug. Of course.
No hugging on the panel, please. No.
Okay, now that's really difficult for me to do, right? But I did that as a demonstration because it's more powerful than words. Dude, I'd probably want to fight him in a bar more than I would want to ask him for a hug. I mean, that's how nuts I am. Look at the guy. I'm obviously going to lose. But if somebody said in my past life, you got to challenge that guy to a fight or you got to go ask him for a hug, I'd be like, I guess I'm getting my ass kicked.
What do you think that's about?
Well, some deep-rooted macho bullshit. But no, what it's about is it's about vulnerability. And it's about being able to be, and I think it's really important. Not only is it for, not only veterans, addicts, it's mental health, for Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. We can bring awareness to all this, but ultimately it's about our unlearning that we are separate and learning how to connect. So humanly. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to cringe the minute I get out of here. You know what I mean? In my behavior. But right now it feels like I really needed that. And so I'm not afraid. I'm not sorry that I asked for it. So thank you, man. Thank you.
No, it's beautiful. And please, for Dominic, and for the idea that not only veterans, not only addicts, not only alcoholics, but all humans need each other, need community, need connection. All these cliches dull us to the meaning of them. When we say we're only as sick as our secrets, the opposite of addiction is connection. These things become shortcuts that don't mean anything. But Dominic needing to hug Keith means something, and it's very beautiful. And now we're going to do our fourth clip, which is we call The Power of Hope, getting out on the other side of the bed.
I woke up and got out the other side of the bed this morning.
You did?
Mm-hmm. And you're right, Sarge, it felt strange.
Great.
Yeah, all that talk about the music dying inside of you, I just feel like you planted a seed.
Well, that's what we do, Fran. We plant seeds, and we water them, and then we let nature take its course, right? We let the seed be.
I don't want to be that guy.
What guy?
The guy who's angry and old and miserable and hates the world. I don't want to die like that.
I know you don't.
No, Sarge, you don't.
I do. You still have music left inside of you, Fran. I get it.
I don't know what it is. I thought I knew shit. I did. I don't. I don't know shit. That book, Carl Jung.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. I do. I think I'm getting it, If we just think we're the past and keep repeating ourselves, and we don't wake up, then we're all fucked, right?
You're getting there.
right? And then we just stay defined by it, and then nothing changes.
And
then you live a quiet life of desperation.
holy shit, somebody's been reading books.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, nothing changes if nothing changes, so.
Turn and face the strange.
I got a lot of undoing of the past, so to speak. It's not fun.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm proud of you, Fred. I really am.
Well, scary.
Yeah, the unknown is scary, bud. I mean, we crave security. We want to come out alive, just like in the war, you know? We don't know what's going to be in front of our face next. You got to lean into your fear, face it, and don't be afraid of your truth, Fred. It's different now, you see, because the light is on, and you can't ignore it anymore. So, embrace it, right? Let go, never stop learning, never stop searching, never stop growing. Let it be. You do that and you're going to be amazed at the magic that happens. Trust me.
Get in here.
Lead with love. That sounds incredibly corny, but honestly, that's all there is, really.
Well, yeah, you're right. It does. It sounds corny, but you know what? I like this corny woo-woo shit, okay? Please, Dr. Sarge, teach me more.
What else?
I don't know. You tell me. What else is there?
Now, my favorite thing about this scene is it's all love and hope, and it makes you feel like love and hope are possible. When you came back, Keith, from serving, how accessible were love and hope to you?
It was tough. Once you had suppressed and shut all of your emotions off just to function, to readjust, takes time. And it takes you putting yourself in a vulnerable position, which as soldiers we don't want to do. It's the last thing that we're taught to do as leaders. But that is the key to growth. And doing that, the more love, the more emotional capacity you're able to build, the more access you're able to build to have it, and a lot less intensity too for your experience.
Thank you. And Dominic, as an actor in subject matter that's so intense and so personal, is it different acting in something like this? We didn't see any of Dominic's scenes.
I played the bad guy.
He's bad, scary, bad crime guy. But is it harder to be a part of some serious cathartic trauma-based scene than like The Wizard of Oz or something?
I would have loved to have been in The Wizard of
I know,
Oz.
it's a terrible example.
Okay. I'm going to share a story about Michael, actually. Michael and I are old friends. And so,
Michael from Mama V, Michael Imperioli.
Imperioli, yeah,
Okay.
different Michael.
Okay.
I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this. Oh, well. That's one of the reasons. As soon as Tommy came to me, he was like, yeah, Michael's doing it, Harley's doing it. These guys are old friends of mine. So I was like, of course I'm doing it. This is about acting and actually experiencing. Anybody who might know Michael's work from The Sopranos? Anybody? Great. Remember the season where he's strung out? Like he plays a junkie. So I'm having dinner with him like about maybe a year ago now, geez. And I go, and I was like, dude, you portrayed a junkie like some of the best work I've ever seen portraying an active heroin addict. And I was like, come on, buddy, tell me the truth. You do a little method acting? Come on, you can tell me. I won't tell anybody. You know what I mean? She's like, no, I didn't. He goes, honestly, he goes, it's a lot of fun playing a junkie. And I go, yeah, it's a lot more fun playing one than being one. So I don't care if you were in Saving Private Ryan and did boot camp. I'm not impressed as an actor. That's my take on it.
Wait, what are you saying?
I don't care that you did boot camp. You're not going to convince me that you had a soldier's experience.
And how is it acting in a movie like this?
Well, that's the thing. You can act, and people suspend belief when they're watching it, right? just then, his feeling of having that moment of empathy and realizing that he is part of the race. You know, seeing these, experiencing these emotions. We're all human. We could all experience that. But to be trained to kill the animal and then realizing what you're doing. I've had many experiences like that. So I could play, let's say, a vegan and be really passionate about it and then go have a burger. You know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting about how we can portray these things, but then how are we doing? Like, all my clients stay with me because they see how I live. I could sit in a room and talk all this Gucci stuff about clinical breakthroughs and all, right? And these all work, all these modalities, CBT, EMDR, I can't believe you do that. This all works. But if I told them and did that and then they saw me outside, you know, kicking dogs and shoplifting,
they wouldn't want to work with you.
I'm not working with this guy anymore. You know, so it doesn't mean I don't respect. Michael did an amazing job, right? Everybody did an amazing job acting, but I got to tell you, it's nothing compared to what we draw from in real life. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. That scene was written. You can share it. Was written by somebody's actual testimony. Yes.
So a lot of the scenes and a lot of these stories that I took from, I did a lot of deep research on whether podcasts from YouTube, documentary, real stories, because I didn't want it to be something that I was making up. I wanted it to come from true stories of these soldiers. So a lot of what you're hearing, obviously, is my dialogue, and I wrote it, but it came from so many different stories that I had listened to and read from soldiers. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to kind of come up with that.
And I love that humility. Just like I can't talk to you and be like, oh, I know what it's like to be a single mom with 2 kids. No, dude, you don't. I never will. I don't know what it's like to be a mom. That's literally impossible for me to ever know, right? But I could, you know, empathize. And I think that's what actors really do. They empathize with the experience. And they portray it rather than just like try to go live it.
Totally. That makes sense to me. Dr. Haney, when you work with veterans, what do you do when you don't have the happy ending? Like, what do you do when you don't see hope? How do you deal with it as a clinician?
I'm glad that you're talking about hope, because one of the biggest problem of substance use in particular is people don't see light at the end of the tunnel. They use and they say, okay, this is the last time, and are genuine about it. Then they relapse. And they relapse, and they use, and they relapse, and then they stop. And then they end up saying, okay, there is no hope. But I have one message for them. For you guys, what do you think? What's the percentage of people who stop using drugs once they start? Somebody is diagnosed with substance use disorder. What's the percentage of those who stop? Anybody knows? I'll give you the answer. 100%. Everybody uses substances, ends up stopping. It's just some of us just don't make it until this point. And that's what I tell everybody that comes in my office in the first session. And our goal, collectively, the patient, myself, psychologist, and social worker and others, is 1, to keep the patient alive, and 2, decrease the amount of financial, psychosocial, relationship harm that will happen until they stop using. But at the end, everybody stops. And this is reality. This really happens. So hope is there.
That's an amazing answer. Thank you, Dr. Haney. And I see Mama V as kind of a walking, talking personification of hope. So what is it like? How do you keep up? How do you keep that up? How do you keep your energy up? How do you keep your positivity up? And how do you be Mama V and be operating with this deep currency of love so passionately? Is it hard?
Here's the thing that we were talking about when we were sitting there. It's letting people know, I say this all the time, and Benjamin, Dr. Leslie knows my spiel. That is that people know, the true meaning of service, so that even when, as a veteran person who served, they're saying thank you for your service, because the etymology of service is nothing soft or fluffy. It's all harsh terms. All right, and it's also the highest call to which you can answer. right? So Klati said, there's no greater good that I can give than that of my service. Why? Because the etymology, it means to travail, as in being in labor, as in being in pain, as in having to push past your own comforts to ensure that something viable and valuable comes forward. And then you don't always get to keep the baby. Sometimes you have to leave the baby, right, and go to the other terms of service, which means to hit, batter, and smite old ideas, right? This is why we're here, and regimes of what that service is and could be, right, and should be. And here's the kicker. Everybody in here, when we're looking at these seats filled and empty, we are all a piece of an integral puzzle. And we were saying without one piece, sometimes you get that little crooked piece, that nobody gets you, nobody understands you. You're sharp, but you're sharp for a reason, because you still have that value. And without every piece of the puzzle, without all of us here doing what we do, and we just have a new pocket card that's getting ready to come out for our physicians, right? So that they don't have to assume the voice of the veteran, right? They'll know all the questions to ask. Not only have you served, right? And know all the questions, right? Pocket card for our professors on campus, right? So that they're not asking the questions, and assume that we killed babies. How many babies have you killed? How many people have you killed? All the right cultural competency. But if you don't step up to answer your call, here's the thing with your call. If you don't answer the call for your assignment to serve, it will defer to the jackass. The jackass will say yes, and we will get the assignment, but you're also going to get the jackass behavior, and then you're going to complain. Know that your piece of the puzzle, your worth, your value of who you are, individually and then collectively, is so important, because if one piece of a puzzle is missing, and here's the thing, sometimes you lose a piece. Sometimes there's a piece that falls out, it's underneath the bed, and that puzzle may try to acquiesce and become a part of what's under the bed and what's happening and try to fit in under there, but you're going to have to come out into the light, because your piece of the puzzle is so important, again, that if one piece is missing, the only value that it has is to be thrown into the garbage. So that's how important everyone is in here of this puzzle, and that we stick to and answer our assignment and our call to serve.
How do you stay so hopeful, Mama V? How do you do it?
Because once I was blind and now I see. I was in the dark, but I knew that if I held on, right? I never wanted to come back to New York. This was the cursed place for me. I said I would never come back. And I came back with 2 babies and 27 cents in my pocket. But I never lost the fact that when I was doing that 10-mile hump, right, in the Marine Corps, that the last 2 miles, everybody wanted to quit. But you knew that if I could just get over that hump, right? That the line that people look for when you're going in that examining room is a line that's sometimes up and sometimes down. And then what is going to go up again? As long as we do not flatline. Hope is how our people, how our veterans, how those who have served endure. How we endure, we hold on, right? To sometimes nothing. It's sometimes on your pinky toe, sometimes on your big toe. But you know that line that's down, it has to come up again. It has to come up again. And so you want to be your piece of the puzzle. You want to take the experience that you're having, right? It's not wasted. That's part of your assignment, right? Not that so that you can forget it or hide it or tuck it away, but so that you can do why we're all here today, right? To say, I've had this happen to me, and now I'm going to utilize my voice, right? It may not be for everyone to hear, but it's for those, right, to whom you are assigned to. You're not assigned to everybody in the world, but you have those few that you are assigned to. And I say again, if you do not assume your assignment, those that are attached to your assignment is going to get that jackass behavior from that other person. And it's going to be your fault, I'm telling you. So, thank you for your service. Thank you for your memories of walking the floor, all right, so that others could sleep. Thank you for embracing the suck and doing it anyway. Thank you for getting up each and every day to ensure the comforts of others while you put your own family, your own comforts of having to get up early, of going to that shitty job that you may not like, but you know damn well that you're called to it, and that if you don't show up, that your piece of the puzzle is going to be out of order. Thank you for knowing your own self-worth, all right? Thank you for your service. Thank you for that.
Mama V. All right. So we're just about at the end of this thing. I want to see if I think we have time for a couple questions. Does anybody have any questions for our esteemed panel? Should have set one. Oh, here we go. Yes.
Spoken so authentically about the human connection component of this and how important that is for the integration and recovery. What here to be done about the gaps in access to recovery and how I guess to get that
Who are you going to ask, Tess? Well, I want to just say real quick that for recovery around addiction and alcoholism, that help is always there. If you reach out to any person in recovery, kind of the way Mama V said, it's our duty to help the next person, and we wouldn't have gotten there without somebody helping us. And I think the biggest barrier is the struggling alcoholic or addict asking for the help. The help is there. But please, Keith, yes.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's definitely something that Mountainside right now is targeting. We recognize that there's over 18 million veterans in the United States today, that 9 million veterans are only connected to VA or VSO services. We also recognize that 1 in 3 veterans live 40 miles or more away from their local VA or VSO services, so that connection is missing. Also, with that 250,000 veterans coming into the population, leaving military service every single year, 80% of them are saying, I wasn't ready to go back home. So this is a problem that the VA is aware of. They're actively trying to manage this by going out and extending into the community to try to make those connections. But here at Mountainside, we also recognize that. And that's a piece. I'm incredibly grateful to be up here with the Department of New York Veteran Services, making this connection to be able to bridge that gap in the community and private space, because I think really the VA is doing everything that they can right now. However, us on the private and community side also need to kind of step up and create that bridge to be able to provide those services to veterans that they desperately need, but also from a position of being culturally competent and being able to communicate the resources and that military-informed language.
And we have the veteran mobile units now for Operation Find and Serve. We're literally going into the places and the spaces that no one was ever going before. And then people are seeing our vans and calling us out on the Southamptons, to let us know, listen, I saw your van, and I think if you go 15 feet behind our home, there's some kids in the woods in a trailer, and we're finding folk that have been out there for years, and they are not the DSM-5 diagnosis. They literally just lost their home 10 years ago. They're trying to make it, and again, Operation Find and Serve. We're finding them, but also now, our staff, we are now trained in the protocols and the suicide prevention and on the governor's suicide team, and now working with the organizations, to make all the puzzle pieces come together to ensure now that when we find you, you have a place to go, to ensure the outdoor RX that's going to further allow you to get outdoors, the Dwyer support groups, but also the grants that'll help you now to pay your rent and pay mortgage and pay back taxes, and the different gift cards from our partners, again, of resources. And we even found through Operation Find find and serve that throughout the state, people thought they knew how many veterans they had employed in their state agencies. And when we have them go back and have changed the flyer to calling all those who served, we now have, by order of the governor, veterans liaisons in every state agency. Why? Because triple and quadruple were there. They are now trained. Our banks have come to us and the corporations have come back to us and said, Mama V, you're right. So now bank people like HSBC's Bank have veterans liaisons. The New Jersey Port Authority, veterans liaisons. Why? Because everywhere we go, people want to know who we are. So we tell them that we are veterans and we are everywhere. And it behooves you to learn and find out who we are and not assume that you know who we are.
Awesome. All right, any other?
You got that New York one, define and serve. Did you make a note?
I
Did
just
you get
wanna-
it out there?
Right here. Here we go.
I just want to add one more thing, Dave.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Hanna. Yeah, Joe
no
wanted to say.
problem. Just one sentence I want to say that addiction is a peculiar disease. It has two layers to it. Not only it's a disease, it also is attached to stigma and guilt and shame. And for us, we need to go an extra step to get people from their houses, their street, their jobs, to get them to get treatment. You don't see somebody who has diabetes who's ashamed of it, but those who have alcohol use disorder or cocaine use disorder, they will hide it and ashamed of it. We need to go an extra step. I'm glad to hear about this initiative to find and help people. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hanny. Yes, Joe.
I think that is such an important question that I want to ask it again differently. Mama V, the medicine that you gave to Michael, that is the powerful medicine that we need, that struggling veterans, struggling human beings need. And no offense to psychiatry and EMDR or any of that. And I think about this concept of, in the military of the force multiplier, a special forces group. Everybody learns a little bit of everything, and these are all skills that you can go train a bunch of people to be competent at. But like you asked, how do you instill that hope? And how do you teach others how to do that when this is such, like the human element of this is so vital? And I think it's underlooked because it's trickier, but that's the medicine. So how do we teach that? How do we teach the fact that that is the medicine? And then how do we teach to provide that medicine?
You know what? I love being the commissioner that gets to travel from Boogie Down Bronx and Long Island all the way to Buffalo and enact this and to see what this medicine does and the value. And this is what I do, right? To everyone who gets it, I tell them, and they come back, I tell them to pay it forward, because that's the assignment of service. To pay it forward. That's being the piece of the puzzle that you are stepping up and sharing what it is that is your story, but then sharing that same medicine. It's that old adage of each one teach one. But again, it's also giving the person who served the opportunity of getting their dignity back. We have restoration of honors, because when we say, have you served? So many say, well, I served, but I'm not really a veteran because I got a dishonorable discharge because I went AWOL. My brother died. I went, AWOL. My wife was having the baby. But when we restore those honors, and I've had the pleasure of presenting so many in person, right? And they see me getting out of the car and they see the camouflage coat and the tears start flowing. Right? Because they're not just getting the services on the paper, but they say, you gave me my dignity back, right? It's allowing the person to have value, right? Allowing you to show up as you are, right? But knowing what that person can be because you already see the value, right? While they're all messed up, right? You see that value, right? You see the worth of them. Right? That a puzzle piece, right? Sometimes, the coloring comes off. You don't even know what that piece is supposed to look like. You just see the cardboard on it. But you still need that piece. And that's what it is. I still need you. but I still need you to pay forward. But I need you to pay forward right now as you're becoming.
Because the person paying it forward gets to get well by paying it forward. By becoming the bridge, they get to cross the bridge.
That's the self-worth.
Yeah, we only keep what we have by giving it away.
Yeah, thank you, doctor, very much. I believe in medically assisted treatment, and I think it's unfortunate that many people don't have access to it, which was their first question. And I love hearing other people's experience. That's the hope. And you just hit on that. That stands for hope, hearing other people's experience. And also, hold on, pain ends. This is interesting. What I would tell people who are, I came into recovery through the altruistic program of the 12 steps, right? And I went because my life was falling apart. And because some cute girl I know went to meetings, and some really, really badass gangsters said, Dominic, just go. And I had to go, or else, you know what I mean? So fear and lust basically drove me into recovery, right? But then I relapsed over and over and over again for years and years and years. And I was in these institutions, and I tried medical treatment, and nobody knew what to do with me. They studied me. They wrote articles. So I was fortunate enough to get what you call a scholarship to treatment. I don't know. I guess you got to be a real bad junkie to get a scholarship. I don't know, to treatment. But anyway, I got a scholarship, and I went kicking and screaming. This is what the difference was for me. My recovery went from fear-based, I never want to go back, to faith-based, I can get better. And this ties into neuroscience as well. And I'll make this quick. So much of what I was doing was fear-based. So much of recovery is fear-based. Addiction is fear-based, right? I always thought the opposite was faith. Okay, it's hard to have them both at the same time. But I've learned recently what cures fear is curiosity. It actually releases all those things that my brain wanted, and I can't feel fearful anymore. Like, imagine it will turn out okay. Wait, what? Yeah. Imagine you're not hopeless. Just imagine it might turn out. So I stay curious. And that's why I can learn so much from this, what I experienced tonight. That's the difference. Maybe, just maybe, I'm not hopeless. And I stuck around. So that's what I would tell people. Stay curious.
Yeah. Love that. For me, I was a long-term heroin addict, methadone addict, benzo addict, weed smoker, and I was not interested in recovery at all. It wasn't until my life fell apart in a way that it hit me in a way where I didn't think I had anything. Nothing good was going to happen to me. Like, my family had left me. I was on my own, and I was a waiter in a restaurant. I had a subletted apartment, and that was the best my life had ever been. You know, I had stopped doing heroin, but I was still doing drugs. The thing that changed my life was showing up in a position of willingness, telling my story, and somebody saying to me in the room, "We'd love it if you came back tomorrow." And like, you hear that kind of story all the time, and you're like, it's bullshit. You know what I mean? Until it happens to you. And they're like, "We'd love it if you come back tomorrow." And I was like, okay. And I went back, and then I just sat there and I listened, and I heard this thing read in some scripture in 12-step. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly attempted to follow this path. And I figured I had never thoroughly done anything except used. And I was like, okay, I was 41 years old when I got sober. And I said, if I'm lucky, I'll be 82 in my life, right? So if half my life is this, what could half of my life be in recovery? And then I took suggestions, and then I did work. And then the greatest thing was knowing that other people in the room were much worse than me, like Dominic, you know? It's like, and to have faith that anybody could get anywhere was like, okay, maybe I can do it. And then the best thing that ever happened to me was being able to help the next person. And when we say we keep what we have only by giving it away, it's like, it's true. Like alcohol, I always say this, alcoholic, I don't want to say that, 12-step is a very vampiric thing. We can't be sober if we don't help somebody who's all miserable and fucked up. That's how we get to be sober. That's how we get to have good lives, and everybody gets better. Well, the truth is that we fail and we succeed, and that there's some successes and there's some failures, and that's kind of the nature of what we're dealing with.
The way I really appreciate you sharing this. This is reality, what you shared, and it exists. It's there. And one of the ways to improve is always look at what we need to do, what the mistakes or the shortcomings that we need to improve and work on. And let me tell you this about those who have active substance use disorder and not being treated the proper way at the healthcare facility. We do have a stigma ourselves. The healthcare facility, healthcare providers have stigma against those who have substance use disorder actively or in recovery. They label them as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I don't want to say what they say. We need to look inside of the healthcare facilities and providers and educate and teach them continuously on how to treat those individuals as humans first. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to let's everyone give a big round of applause to the panel. Dr. Hani, Mama V, Keith, and Dominic. And do you want to address what Franklin said real quick, Mama V, before we go? Or do you want to address that comment? Because I'm sure that speaks to you and what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely correct, which is why, we are doing the military cultural competency piece and here tonight, again, to not be behind the problem, but to get in front of it, to be the precipitator. But also, again, this is what we're actively doing at DVS, again, when those mobile units are going into the places and spaces, because, again, they're not only looking for me, but they're looking for people like Michael, who were getting the drunken blindness, and the same folk that you said, or the folk that we have seen that we share with the people, the turnaround. But no, you are absolutely correct. But that is why we are all here. We're now no longer looking to open the door. We're now looking to be the door.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you so much, Dave. You did a fantastic job, and thank you to our panelists. That's incredible. So we want to thank all the veterans for coming tonight and also recognize the families. We have some Barone daughters here tonight. We have some siblings. We have several spouses that traveled very far to join us. So thank you very much for being here. I'm excited. We've got Sober in Central Park, and we hope you stay for that. So Andre Basso, our CEO of Mountainside, thank you and Chelsea for supporting us in this initiative. He will come say some closing remarks, and then we hope you'll stay with us. I would be remiss if I did not thank some very incredible people behind the scenes who have made this event happen. So thank you so much to Olivia Sook, to Joe Crowley, to Dave Mattini, to Rich Lobel. Without your passion for this work and for bringing us all together, we wouldn't be here this evening. So thank you very much. And now we have Andre Basso, our CEO of Mountainside Treatment Center. Thank you, Andre.
Well, there's not much to say, really, but just to thank you. I think that we had a powerful night, and it's a little bit somber to think about the size of the mission, isn't it? And it's like how we're going to figure it out, how we're going to accomplish. It's too big. And like you said, Franklin, it's like the feeling of failure is every day. It's the same battle that we see with addiction, isn't it? It's like we are failing. We see people dying. I think that the important part from today is we had so many great ideas and so many good reflections today by listening to people that had different paths of life and different perceptions of the same mission that we have. So I think that I want to thank everybody, Jana and Jessica and all our team at Mountainside for the great work that you do. I want to thank you, Benjamin and Viviana, for putting the power of the state to work together with Mountainside and the private sector. It's very hard to do that. I worked for the government in previous jobs. You have to move a huge wheel sometimes to get small movement. And thank you for the effort for that. I want to thank also Tommy and Dominic and all your crew and the people that work together to put the film. It's such a hard work. And I think that the beauty of that is there's a value in transmitting and communicating the culture and the message that we sometimes underestimate. So thank you for spearheading that effort as well. For Keith, thank you for being transparent with your experience and putting together your expertise together with many other clinicians that helped. It would be unfair to say that you did it alone. I think that like you did with your troops, you were leading the charge, but at Mountainside also, I think that a lot of people put also time and effort on that. And Dr. Haney, thank you very much for bringing the technical expertise and being a reliable partner to Mountainside and to the community in working with addiction. I like your hope. I like very much the hope that everybody's going to stop one day, that we need to shorten the path for that. So thank you for that. And finally, thank you for everybody that supported the event. A special thanks to Rachel. Rachel, thank you very much for Sober Central Park. We're going to enjoy some sober drinks today, thanks to Rachel. Thank you very much, Rachel, for allowing the experience to permeate this area. It's important for us also to share that as an opportunity for people. And well, that's it. Thank you very much for everything. For Mountainside, and this is not advertising, but it's just what we believe. We were born 27 years ago, 28 years ago, and we were born with a desire to help. When we are succeeding in helping, it feels very good. So thank you very much for that, and enjoy the night. Thank you.